Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You're on, Dick Morris.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug Deperro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Do you guys remember the movie Elf? I'm sure everyone saw it. When they do, it's Sunday morning, it's Dick Morris. I'm in the background going, it's Dick Morris, it's Dick Morris. It's like memories, it's Santa Claus.
Hey, it's, the economy is on fire.
On fire.
Unbelievable. A 4.3% growth rate. Normally the growth rate is around, you hope it's 2%. 4.3 is unbelievable.
That's unbelievable.
The Commerce Department's report, which was delayed by the shutdown, showed that GDP grew 4.3% a year between July and September. That was significantly higher than both economists' predictions of 3.2% and the second quarter rate of 3.8%. Looking ahead to the end of the year, the new MasterCard report says holiday spending jumped 3.9% this year. So what's working? Consumption kept growing in the third quarter, particularly powered by the wealthy and upper middle class who are still spending big. Exports jumped, corporate profits leapt as some tariffs eased, and military spending rose. Consumer spending could be boosted again by Republican tax cuts. All in all, this is another report showing an economy that has improved more resilient under Trump and resilient in the face of his tariffs. The doubters, naysayers, and panicans and liberal media have been proven wrong again. Trust in Trump. The president's growth policies are working. The reason that they're working is that we all have known for hundreds of years that if you hype consumer demand and increase the amount of money that there is to spend out there, people are going to spend it, and that's going to cause economic growth. The problem is that it also causes inflation, because with all of that money out there and people spending it, they spend it on dumb things, and eventually it causes inflation. Investments that appear too risky suddenly appear okay, and people put their money there, and it ends up causing inflation and no real growth.
You mean the wrong confidence? You know,
yeah.
We have consumer confidence, but this is in the wrong place type of thing?
What Trump has done is change the nature of the game by making it international, not just domestic. It's not just that it's not just that we want the demand to increase in the United States. It's that we import demand by making companies change their location from abroad to here in order to avoid tariffs. And it creates a conundrum, a necessity to move your operations to the U.S. from abroad.
Do we have numbers on that yet? You know, how many?
Well, yeah, we do. But
came in?
They're huge, something like $10 trillion.
Wow.
And that
Of companies that came back.
that came here, yeah.
Right, or came here.
And so it's a unbelievable thing that he's done. And the way he's done it is by using tariffs in effect to coerce companies to come here, create an economic imperative for them to come here. And then when they come here, and that increases our economy, it's not a demand pull. It's not that there's more money out there and as a result everybody's buying more, because that could cause inflation. Instead, people are making things here, producing things here, providing services here, and that's causing the economic growth.
So when, in other words, a manufacturer makes stuff, you have workers making money. You got people buying the products here from people making money here. So it's a beautiful cycle is what you're getting at.
Yeah, that's right. And what Trump has done is by internationalizing it, by bringing the tariffs into it, is that he's produced this incredible rate of growth with no inflation. It's truly a magical act, and the more this continues, the more it's going to be really writing new textbooks about economics.
And he also wrote a new word, panicking. Panicking is from Trump. You know, you heard,
said that?
Yeah, that comes strictly right from Trump.
Oh.
He called people that are in panic, whether they're Americans or whatever, panicking.
That's funny.
Because I read it, I go, what is this panicking? So I looked it up, and it's Trump.
Now, apart from the economy, Trump is continuing to win.
And Dick Morris, as an advisor to President Trump, told a news firm on Friday that Democrats are running out of answers as the economy continues to improve. Dick said this. First, they said nobody can solve the economy, Dick said. Then they said Trump can't because his policies are wrong, he had. Then they said Trump's policies are okay, but they're creating massive inequality. Now they're saying things are getting better, but they're still not affordable. The Democrats' fallbacks are the best indicator of Trump's progress, he said. Morris said, this is the guy next to me over here, the tariffs put in place by Trump have produced massive revenue that has begun to trickle down to working Americans. Once the court rules that the tariffs are legal, I think Trump is going to go ahead with the $2,000 person rebate. Once again, Dick, that would be hard for the Democrats to say it's not helping, he added. The political strategist said, the guy next to me, said he expects Trump's momentum to continue into his second year as the American public begins to feel the impact of his policies. The tariffs are just beginning to take effect, Morris said. There's going to be a major Social Security refund when the tax exemption of Social Security kicks in. He said policies such as no tax on tips will be huge for the country. And we have another story coming up where some states might not go towards that, right? They're not going to.
Yeah, well, some of the tax cuts, like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security.
Like New York, California.
Were voluntary.
Right.
That is, they're automatic on your federal taxes, but it's up to each state whether they should include the exemption on the state taxes. And a lot of the blue states are refusing to do it. So it's going to create an inequality in the growth rate.
Now, I think the next story Dick is going to do, I think is one of the most important for us to understand it, for that argument that when a liberal comes up to us and starts talking about Trump's no good and this and that, this next story, its topic says, what would have happened without
No fair,
Trump?
you peaked.
I did, but this is important for everyone to kind of understand this and have it in their tool
This is
shed.
the flip side of it. What would have happened without Trump?
Right.
Today's blockbuster GDP report should serve as a strong reminder that this year's biggest present to the American people came back in July when President Trump and the Republicans in Congress passed the big, beautiful tax bill. Every single House and Senate Democrat voted repeatedly to let all of Trump's tax cuts made in 2016 expire, which would have raised taxes on the middle class by about $1,500 per household next year. Gee, snatching more money out of workers' paychecks would have helped with the affordability scam.
Yeah, okay.
Here are some of the tax hikes that would have been arriving by January 1st if the Democrats had gotten their way. But they did not. The standard deduction would have been cut in half, raising taxes and forcing millions of taxpayers to itemize their deductions. Tax rates would have spiked, with every rate rising, and the top rate jumping from 37 to 39.6. Unlimited SALT deductions for state and local taxes, a huge giveaway to rich people in high tax states, would have come back. The child tax credit, which gives $2,000 of subsidy of $2,000 per child, would have been cut to $1,000. Small business taxes would have soared from 29.6 to 39.6. and the alternative minimum tax and the death tax would have snapped back to their pre-2017 exemption levels. All income groups did benefited. Everyone got a tax cut, and the left had wanted everyone to get a tax increase.
The Commerce Department's report, which had been delayed by the government shutdown, showed that gross domestic product grew 4.3% annually from July through September.
We did that already.
Did we?
Turning to foreign affairs, President Trump has issued a comprehensive national security plan. During the Cold War, the Defense Department and the State Department were required by statute to give what's called a posture statement. You know, like your mother says, stand up straight.
Sit up straight?
Yeah. But this posture statement was how the U.S. stacks up against its rivals.
Right.
So Trump did this year's report, but instead of focusing on Europe and focusing on the Cold War, he was focusing on a whole range of international issues. It's very important to get a sense of where Trump is going on this. First of all, he prioritized stuff within the Western Hemisphere. It included scathing critiques of Europe, of their migration and free speech policies, suggesting that Europe faces the prospect of civilizational erasure and raising doubts about the long-term reliability as U.S. partners. Civilizational erasure. That's a new phrase. But it means really that the European civilization, the basis of Western civilization, is under threat because of migration, because of the curbs on free speech.
Who they are.
Yeah.
Basically, who they are is going to disappear.
At the same time, the administration is sharply critical of its democratic allies in Europe. It chides past U.S. efforts to shape or criticize Mideastern nations and seeks to discourage attempts for changes to those countries' governments and policies. The strategy reinforces, in sometimes chilly and bellicose terms, Trump's America First philosophy, which favors non-intervention overseas, questions decades of strategic relations, and prioritizes U.S. interests. The U.S. strategy is above all motivated by what works for America, or in 2 words, America First, the document said. This is the first national security strategy, a document the administration is required by law to release since the president's return to office. The document, which is written very boldly, also accuses America's long-standing allies, which have found themselves sometimes at odds with Trump over Ukraine, of facing not just domestic economic policies, but according to the United States, an existential crisis. Economic stagnation in Europe is eclipsed by the real and more stark contrast of civilizational erasure, the document said. The U.S. suggests that Europe is being enfeebled by its immigration policies, sharply declining birth rates, censorship of free speech, and suppression of political opposition, and loss of national identities and self-confidence.
That's what he's worried about.
Should present trends continue, the continent will be unrecognizable in 20 years or less. As such, it's far from obvious whether certain European countries will have the economies and militaries strong enough to be reliable allies. The document also gives a nod to the rise of far-right political parties in Europe, which have been outspoken in their opposition to legal immigration and climate change. America encourages its political allies in Europe to promote this revival of spirit and the growing influence of patriotic European parties, which the left hates, has given cause for great optimism. Despite Trump's America First maxim, the administration has carried out a series of military strikes on drug trafficking boats in the Caribbean, including possible military action in Venezuela. And it's important what the next paragraph is. These moves are part of what the national security strategy lays out as a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine to restore American preeminence in the Western Hemisphere. In 1823, the Monroe Doctrine, formulated by President James Monroe and Secretary of State John Quincy Adams, was originally aimed at opposing any European meddling in the Western Hemisphere and used to justify U.S. military interventions in Latin America. Trump's strategy document says it aims to combat drug trafficking and to control migration. The U.S. is also reimagining its military footprint in the region, even after building up the largest military presence there in generations. This means, for instance, targeted deployments to secure the border and defeat cartels, including, where necessary, the use of lethal force to replace the failed law enforcement-only strategy of the last several decades. With the shift to the Americas, in this document, the first chapter is on Latin America, not on Europe the way it usually is. The U.S., according to the strategy, should abandon America's misguided experiment with hectoring nations in the Middle East, especially monarchies in the Gulf, about their traditions and forms of government. Trump has bolstered ties with nations there and sees the Middle Eastern countries as ripe for economic opportunities, and the Arab nations are emerging as a place of friendship, partnership, and investment, the document says. That's how Trump has flipped the Emirates and Saudi Arabia to being in favor of peace with Israel and was instrumental in the Gaza settlement.
And if he does that, he's going to partner up somehow, and he's thinking strategy also with the Muslim and the Caliphate. And he does this, he's going to say, listen, you got to do away with these guys.
Not strategy, denying them their funding.
Yeah.
We should encourage and applaud reform when and where it emerges organically without trying to impose it, he said. And on the relationship with China, as the U.S. under Trump has overturned decades of free trade policies, his ties with China have been a prime focus. America under Trump is seeking, in the words of the report, to rebalance the U.S.-China relationship while also countering Beijing's aggressive stance toward Taiwan. The Trump administration wants to prevent a war over Taiwan, and since the U.S. is obliged by its own laws to give military support to Taiwan. But the U.S. wants allies in the region to do more to push back against Chinese pressure and contribute more for their defense. The American military cannot and should not have to do this alone, the strategy says. Our allies must step up and spend, and more importantly, do, much more important for the collective defense. So the entire document, which is tremendously significant, is a pivot from Europe to Asia and to Latin America, and to move our policy in that direction. And it basically stresses economic power as opposed to military power, and defines the relationship with China as economic, not as military, and blasts the whole idea of making every country a democracy. Instead, it says work with the countries we've got and use their financial leverage to promote peace.
Capitalism will work anyway because they'll want to make the money like we make, and eventually they'll come to it. Maybe not, but that's Trump's strategy.
So when we come back, we'll continue, but this time we'll focus on domestic policy.
When we get back.
These rebates on tariffs and Social Security coming soon.
Beautiful.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug Deperro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Let me quickly, just the call-in number is 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222.
If this show is interrupted by sirens, it's because the economy is on fire, and the fire is apparently spread to this show and this studio, where it's engulfing the whole country.
Oh, that's unbelievable. So call Joe Malillo to get out.
Right, that's right. Yep.
So anyway, on the Rocks version, what we do all the time, that topic, which is great, and Roxana Maria, she always comes up with something great. she talked about this year and whatnot. And I said, but we didn't want to do, what happened in the year. But she came up with a beautiful rendition of it. So anyway, here we are on the rocks. Hi, Roxana.
And so here we are. Okay. Hi, Dick. Hi, Doug. To quote Mark Twain, the two most important days of your life is the day you were born and the day you find out why. Discovering your reason for being transforms existence from mere survival to fulfillment. Hope, purpose, motivation, the why becoming one's focus. I'd like to take a moment to highlight some important progress that is happening and will be advancing in 2026. AI is debatable, but it is revolutionizing medical diagnoses, the key being early detection. Mental health support is going mainstream, with major companies offering mental health benefits and therapy sessions for its employees. We've talked about the effects the COVID shutdowns had on our children, but it also affected young and middle-aged working adults. So I pray that this becomes the norm in the companies and across the nation in the workplace, not the exception. Gene therapy is curing incurable diseases in children born with severe immune deficiencies. They are successfully being cured, giving them normal immune systems and a chance to live full, healthy lives, where prior they were isolated with little hope. Sickle cell diseases are also being conquered as well. The job market, as we know, is showing promise with a focus on self-sufficiency and utilizing our own domestic resources. This past year, as Americans, we put our faith in President Trump's promises and those he appointed to join his vision for our country. Thus far, we have not been disappointed. Personally, the swiftness in many areas are nothing less than miraculous. Leading me back to Mark Twain's quote, finding one's purpose, believing in the future, possibilities in a country that was built and succeeded with faith. As this year comes to a close, let's take a moment reflecting on our own lives, on the progress we've made, what we'd like to change, and creating positive goals, not just personally, but as Americans. May we approach 2026 with gratitude, optimism, and a renewed sense of purpose in our country and with one another. Blessings to all for a healthy, safe, joyous New Year.
Happy New Year, Roxana Maria.
Boy,
yes,
what a great quote by Mark Twain. The two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why.
Do we ever find out why?
Yeah, you do.
I have.
You have. I have.
Yeah, Roxana.
And President Trump.
Well, he has. It's really amazing. Well, what, how do you feel about President Trump finding his purpose?
I just feel that he took a step off of his own personal platform to the world's platform.
Well, in his case, the second most important day was the day that he was not killed.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Twice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Roxana Maria.
Thank you for having me.
Now, $2,000 rebate checks are coming soon.
A top White House economic official said that it appeared more likely that the Trump administration will be sending out $2,000 tariff rebate checks and would be bringing a proposal to do so in 26. In the summer, I wasn't so sure that there was space for a check like that, but now I'm pretty sure that there is. This is Kevin Hassett, the head of the National Economic Council. He cited economic growth and a reduction in U.S. government debt, the reason why he believes the rebate payments could be made next year. And so I would expect that the new year, the president will bring forth a proposal to Congress to make that happen, he told the outlet, noting that Congress has to pass legislation first before the rebates can be sent out. Also in a CBS interview, Hassett said that if the if the Supreme Court rules against the Trump administration tariff, it could create significant administrative problems. We really expect the Supreme Court is going to find with us, Hassett said. The economist said that even if the Supreme Court rules against the tariffs, it would be unlikely that they're going to call for widespread refunds because it would be an administrative problem to get those refunds out there, referring to a refunding of import taxes that were collected by the government.
Now, the background on that is that Hastert is most likely going to be appointed as Jerome Powell's successor as the head of the Federal Reserve Board. So he's kind of auditioning for that job. And you could read that between the lines of his statement, telling Trump, appoint me. This is the kind of head of the Federal Reserve Board you wish for in your dreams, and you appoint me and you're going to get it.
Wow, that's pretty good. Well, is Powell out?
Yeah, he has to. His term ends in May. So he has to leave. Trump wants to kick him out before, but he probably legally can't do it.
Right. Now, Trump may deny the green card.
The other thing to bear in mind is that what that statement by Hastert does is it ups the ante for the Supreme Court, which is now considering the constitutionality of Trump's tariffs, and says to every American, if the court rules against the constitutionality, your $2,000 rebate could go up in smoke. But if the court affirms the constitutionality, as they should, we'll look forward to opening your mail. So what Hastert's done is to really give the court a tremendous incentive.
Almost an ultimatum that if you do that, this could happen. And wow,
that's right.
It's kind of a little bit scary. Not scary, but it's
hardball.
It's hardball, political hardball. And Trump's thinking about he's going to deny green cards to Medicaid or food stamp beneficiaries. More than 100 Democrats in Congress are urging the Department of Homeland Security to withdraw a rule that would open the door to denying a green card to those who use public benefits like Medicaid or food stamps. President Trump's latest crack at a so-called public charge rule would strike down the Biden-era version of the rule, which returns the country to the long-standing criteria that allowed rejections of green cards for those primarily dependent on government assistance, such as those who receive cash assistance or help with nursing home care. In striking down the rule without offering a replacement, critics fear Trump is opening the door to widespread rejection of green cards for those who would otherwise qualify, while also prompting immigrants to not seek assistance for which they could qualify.
A very important part of this is that while Trump has cut illegal immigration into the country to less than zero, over 2 million people have left the country because of that, he also is discouraging green card immigration and saying that if you can come in on a green card, you got to be self-supporting. You can't be a government charge.
Like Teddy Roosevelt said, the people that come in, we want you to help our country. We don't want you to come in and hack the system and, take our stuff.
And part of this is that Trump is tripling the bonus for self-deportation.
The Department of Homeland Security is now offering $3,000 to illegal migrants who voluntarily self-deport from the U.S. before New Year. It's being reported. I have to tell you, I wasn't in favor of this, and Dick convinced me the amount of money, which I'm going to be saying in a minute, the amount of money that they spent to keep them here and keep them in prison and lawyers is a lot more. So, Dick had to beat me down and tell me, according to the CBS News, DHS has tripled its exit bonus from $1,000 to $3,000 for illegal immigrants who sign up with the federal government and depart by December 31st next week using the rebranded CBP Home app. It's Customs and Border Protection app. DHS says eligible participants will also receive free airfare to their home countries and may have certain civil fines or penalties waived if they leave voluntarily. The stipend would be paid after the U.S. government confirms the individual has exited the country. I like that. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem told CBS News the incentive is temporary and warned those who refuse it will be found arrested and never to return to the United States. So the CBP home platform is modeled on the Biden-era CBP One app, originally used to schedule asylum appointments. Under President Trump's renewed immigration crackdown, the technology has been repurposed to facilitate voluntary departures. Migrants are instructed to use the app to signal their intent to leave. If aliens are approved, DHS says they get travel assistance and $3,000 payment once they are confirmed out of the country. DHS argues the program is aimed at speeding up removals while saving money, of taxpayer money. As of May of 2025, Immigration and Customs Enforcement estimates the average cost to arrest, detain, and remove an illegal immigrant is about $17,000. By contrast, DHS says voluntary departure with travel assistance are far less expensive, a point the administration is amplifying. The Independent reported DHS has rolled out a holiday-themed, this is funny, advertising campaign promoting the app.
Instead of going down the chimney, go up the gangplank.
No, you're going out with the Christmas bag right, that Santa's got, and he throws you off the side of the sleigh. Anyway, so that's pretty good. They also reported internal DHS data showing tens of thousands of people have used the app to depart since the self-deportation feature launched earlier this year, as the federal government spent heavy on advertising.
The stats are incredible. We have deported 625,000 people.
In 1 year.
And they're gone. But there's been self-deportation, people who voluntarily left, of 1.5 million.
Wait, that's in addition? That's with that 600?
In addition to it.
Wow.
So it's 2.1 million fewer people in America.
Oofa.
And that means less housing demand, less
everything.
Demand for everything, lower
They're not
prices.
Hacking our benefits and
it's a key part of the anti-inflation strategy that has not been publicized. By reducing the number of people who are here, by reducing the amount of housing they consume and transportation they want, and jobs that they seek, we're reducing the inflation in the country, not by temporarily hyping demand, but by permanently reducing the number of people in America. And we've reduced it by over 2 million people, and it's going to drop heavily in the future.
And not only that, we're not going to get 10 million a year coming in.
Yeah.
They're going to say, oh, wait, I don't have a green card and the whole thing. Absolutely.
Now, next, let's switch, not just domestic, let's switch planets. Trump is gearing up to the race to go to Mars. President Trump has set up an ambitious goal to put men back on the moon by 28 and get ready to go to Mars in a December executive order. Ensuring America's space superiority has tremendous historical, technological, economic, and national security implications that will almost certainly reverberate for decades to come. The president's order established the priority of returning Americans to the moon by 28 through the Artemis program to assert America's leadership in space and lay the foundation for further economic development, prepare for the journey to Mars, and inspire the next generation of American explorers. Not since 1972's Apollo 17 have Americans, or anyone else for that matter, visited the moon besides robots and satellites, a drought of 53 years after 6 manned missions. But that was that was kind of to go up and take a look around. Whereas current advanced technologies, the president said, is now making a push for man to permanently be on the moon. Trump justified the renewed push for men into the solar system because it's there to bolster national economic security, with the order stating superiority in space is a measure of national vision and willpower, and the technologies Americans develop to achieve it contribute significantly to the nation's strength, security, and prosperity. The United States must therefore pursue a space policy that will extend the reach of human discovery, secure the nation's vital economic and security interests, and unleash commercial development. The first manned mission will be on the Artemis program, which began in 2012, and was designated as the successor to the Apollo program. The first step appears to be in 26, when the Orion spacecraft developed by Lockheed Martin, with the next launch window opening up on
as soon as February 5th, 2026, which is great. Artemis 2 will be a crewed mission to orbit the moon and test new communication systems, a necessary precursor to the landing again. The mission will be crewed by Commander Reed Weissman, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Christina Koch, and mission specialist Jeremiah Hansen. According to December 16 NASA press, the Artemis crew participated in more than 30 missions simulations alongside teams on the ground, ensuring the crew and launch flight and recovery teams are prepared for any situation that may arise during the test flight. Soon crew will don their survival suits and get strapped into this thing, countdown demonstration test serving as a dress rehearsal. This is amazing that they're going to be going up in 26 in February of 26. But the goals the president has outlined go much further, including eventually establishing a permanent base on the moon by establishing initial elements of the permanent lunar outpost by 2030 to ensure a sustained American presence in space and enabling the next steps in Mars exploration. And here's the thing, though. Not only is this absolutely should be done, but the technology we gain, automotive and airlines and housing and building from this alone, because they have to develop all new stuff, is amazing. Yep. So, and Trump knows what he's doing with this.
And the idea that we are going to basically colonize the moon and use it as and eventually Mars, is very important. For those who are freaking out about climate change and say the planet is doomed and a comet's going to hit us and destroy us. For those who
the comet can hit us and destroy us, but we're not doomed from climate change.
For those who are freaking out about that, the ultimate answer is to colonize another planet.
Yeah, right.
And Trump is foreseeing the day of that.
Right. And even though he won't see it in his lifetime, he's foreseeing it.
We, however, do want the other planet to vote Republican.
So Pew Report, you want me to do this story, Dick? Pew reports much greater faith in GOP than in Dems. And then we're going to go to break. The real issue is that Democrats have a much higher rate of negative attitudes towards their own party than Republicans do. According to a survey, over 2/3 of Democrats, 67%, say they are frustrated with their own party, while way under half of Republicans, 40%, say they are frustrated. Conversely, a full 69% of Republicans say they are hopeful about the Republican Party, while just half of Democrats say the same thing about them. 52% of Republicans say they are proud of the GOP, while 29% of Democrats say.
Well, and that's crucial for turnout in the midterm elections.
If the economy, just like I said a month ago, you were nervous about it, and I said, we got time. The economy's going to show nice in the next month or two. It's going to show real nice. We're going to do fine in the midterms.
It's more than nice. It's gangbusters.
Yeah, hopefully. You want to go to the phones real quick? We'll go to, do we have time? We got time for the break. Let's go to Sandra. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Merry Christmas and a happy and a healthy New Year.
Same to you.
Same here.
Oh, you're welcome. I was thinking about the adding on Donald J. Trump's name to the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts. That sparkled a lot of controversy.
Yeah.
Now, you have to understand, originally, the name was created by an act of Congress as a memorial to President John F. Kennedy. Now, the Board of Trustees of this Kennedy Center voted to rename it. Now, people have to understand, they're not replacing Kennedy's name. They're adding to it. That's very important to understand. It's not an endorsement. It's acknowledgement. And canceling a free public concert over this, that's a very bad precedent. I was remembering way back when Donald Trump reacted to the kind of shows that they were showing. They were showing dance parties for queer and trans youth, performance on anti-police themes and lesbian-only Shakespeare. Donald Trump, a long time ago, was very, very upset. He felt these shows were inappropriate. He felt they were in bad taste. So I think he wanted his name on there because he wants this center to be classy and to be the way it should be. And he's not banning all that stuff. He just wants it to go in the right direction. So that's what I wanted to say.
Very good, Sandra.
And thank you for that perspective, Sandra.
That's really good. What's the name going to be? The Kennedy Trump Center?
Yeah.
It's going to be the Donald Trump and the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center.
Okay.
That's, Yeah.
All right, Sandra, thank you so much. We need to take a break. And when we come back, we got more stuff to talk about, obviously.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The California courts have always ruled that the state of California and the schools there could engage in gender change therapy, including surgery, an artificial penis, artificial genital organs for women, and not tell parents about it.
So
here's done in secret. So now there's a new court decision that says they can't.
And there's a letter. In a landmark victory for parental rights, a federal judge in Southern California ruled Monday, that parents have a constitutional right to be informed that their minor child socially transitions their gender at school, and that teachers have a constitutional right to inform parents of the I don't know, constitutional right. Obligation, right. Yeah. It says right. Obligation. It's about time. First of all, there's the idea that we've been talking about this, that there has
Trump
to be a
used to say, put Jack on the bus and Jill comes home.
I thought you said that. That was Trump?
Right. Well, whatever.
U.S. District Judge Roger Benitez of Southern District, California, issued a summary judgment ruling in Marabelli versus Olson and issued a permanent injunction against California Attorney General Rob Bonta, the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurman, and members of California State Board of Education. The ruling halts California state-sanctioned parental exclusion policy. That's horrible. That orders teachers to hide a child's gender transition at school. I can't even get over talking about this. This is a historic win for parental rights and a devastating loss for Newsom, Governor Newsom, this guy, Bob Bonta, and Tony Thurman, said Lance Christensen, Vice President of Government Affairs and Education Policy at California. Parents' constitutional rights to direct the upbringing of education of their children cannot be overridden by state bureaucrats. It's hard to believe this is even a historical win.
Papa Newsom needs to draw in his claws.
Yeah, new scum. Anyway, we got to take another quick break. I was just asked to, and then we're going to come right back.
Talking about tax refunds coming.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug Deperro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Very good, Dick Morris. Very good. Tax refunds are coming. The Trump administration is promising the next largest tax refund in American history next year. Americans have yet to experience the tax cuts made law by the big, beautiful bill because it was signed in the middle of the year, meaning employees have been withholding taxes based on prior law. But the BBB's tax cuts are retroactive to January 1st, which means that when Americans file their taxes next year, the government will use calculations based on the bill. I think we're going to see $100 billion to $200 billion of refunds, which could be between 1,000 and 2,000 per household. That's Scott Bessent said. So that's pretty good. With, although 100 to 200 billion, I mean, that's $1 billion difference.
But there'll be different amounts for different people.
Discrepancy.
Yeah, but the point is that there'll be a huge tax refund.
That's amazing.
Combined with a rebate on the tariffs. And none of this is borrowed money like Biden's stuff was.
Right.
All of this is either payments by foreign governments in rebates or payments by American taxpayers that have piled up in the years since.
And there's got to be adding companies that are coming here and paying taxes. What did it just say was coming to us? So other companies coming into America, you said it before.
About 10 trillion.
Yeah. So with those taxes also, right? Now this is amazing right here. And of course the Democrats will say it's not true. Murder rate drops to the lowest ever. This is great. The U.S. appears headed for the largest one-year drop in murders in history, according to a well-known crime analyst. That's the conclusion of crime statistics expert Jeff Asher, who says the new national data shows killings plunging at a pace not seen in modern recording keeping. According to Asher's real-time crime index, that's the RTCI, the United States is on track for the biggest single-year decline in murders ever recorded, a striking reversal after the COVID-era crime surge. Well, you know what it is. We got a new sheriff in town, and people are worried.
But also we have fewer criminals in town. We have deported 2 million people.
And we're enforcing laws like we haven't been before. When you hurt a cop, you get in trouble. Last month, FBI Director Patel said the 2025 homicide rate will be the lowest in modern history, crediting a bureau-wide shift towards fighting violent crime right there. Independent analysts such as Asher say the data strongly points in that direction. The RCCI is the real-time crime index is a large national database that compiles reported crime data from hundreds of law enforcement agencies and is updated regularly, long before official federal numbers are released. The real-time crime index data currently available through October shows murders down 20% compared to the same period last year. The index glossary notes that its murder category excludes cases such as accidental deaths and deaths caused by negligence, meaning the index aims to track willful, non-negligent killings, aligning closely with the FBI's definitions. Asher earlier this fall cautioned that national crime estimates are often revised and that final official number can take years to settle. Still, he argued the trend line is now so strong that the FBI will likely end up reporting the lowest U.S. murder rate ever recording when full 2025 data is released, possibly dipping below previous record low set in 2014. The plunge in murders is also part of a broader drop in violent crime. The real-time crime index data shows other major categories falling nationwide, including motor vehicle theft, robbery, aggravated assault, suggesting the decline isn't limited to one region or one type of community. Because, like I said, the new sheriff in town, there's consequences now. Laws are being enforced. That's just it. Major cities are seeing some of the sharpest improvements. Axios highlighted drops of nearly 20% in murders in New York, 20%, and in Memphis, close to 28% in Chicago, and significant declines in Los Angeles. There are outliers with a handful of jurisdictions reporting dramatic percentage spikes, a reminder that smaller agencies can see volatile swings from year to year. The numbers arrive as President Trump made combating violent crime a major second-term priority. The Trump administration is emphasizing stronger enforcement and expanded support for law enforcement. That's it. It's not a secret. And now what he did with D.C., does he still have the National Guard out in different places?
Yeah, he does.
Where are they now? In Chicago?
Yeah.
Are they still in Chicago?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think they're still in Memphis.
Right.
I think they may still be in D.C.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It's too bad you don't like these guys. Too bad. We don't like the criminals.
Yep.
And murders.
Now, The big, beautiful bill tax cuts are to federal income tax. The question now is, will various states follow with exempting them from the state income tax? Mm-hmm. And so far there's a real dissonance between blue states and red states, with blue states not passing these deductions on. State legislatures prepare to convene early next year, and they'll face a pivotal decision on whether to adopt a series of federal tax cuts under the big, beautiful bill passed by Congress. The Treasury Department is urging states to immediately conform to key provisions of the new federal law, which offers temporary tax deductions for workers' tips and certain overtime earnings, as well as breaks on interest for new automobile loans and deductions for business equipment. Most states have yet to do so, according to the AP. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has publicly criticized Democratic-led states for not adopting the tax changes, which Trump signed in July of 2025. While they become effective for federal returns, state tax codes do not automatically mirror federal law. Workers in states that don't adopt these changes could pay no tax on tips and overtime, but still owe state taxes on those same amounts. Only a handful of states have adjusted their tax codes so far. Michigan became the first to adopt federal deductions for tips and overtime, making them effective in 26. Legislators there offset the revenue losses by rejecting several federal corporate tax breaks that would have reduced state tax collections further. Lawmakers in many states are grappling with budgetary issues that could result in resistance to cutting tax revenue. Some officials, particularly in states with Democratic leaders, argue that reducing tax collections could jeopardize funding for education, healthcare, and infrastructure.
In Illinois, for example, lawmakers have passed measures to decouple parts of the corporate tax change in the bill to preserve hundreds of millions of dollars for state priorities. Government J.B. Prickhead, a Democrat, said his state must protect his budget against what he describes as an onslaught from federal government that could leave certain essential services unfunded. Most state legislative sessions start in January, which means lawmakers will not have much time to decide whether to adopt the tax break retroactively for 25 filings. Some could choose to implement changes for tax year of 26 instead, which would delay potential tax relief for residents. Supporters of conforming to the federal tax changes argue that doing so would boost workers' take-home pay and simplify compliance. Critics, on the other hand, counter that cost with state revenues would require trade-offs, especially in the state and budgetary. And we got to take a break. That's why I took over.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug Deperro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. We all were shocked and outraged by all the stories about massive fraud in the welfare collections in Minnesota. In particular, the community of 90,000 Somalis was essentially mobilized into a criminal enterprise to defraud federal taxpayers of money that was allocated for the homeless and young people and feeding programs. In particular, one program called Feed the Children, I think, there was no food given to children. It was all a scam to defraud the government. Trump said, in the sprawling administrative states run by liberal politicians, they treat that pact like trash. They build bloated, unaccountable bureaucracies while oversight is a dirty word. Under the banner of endless compassion, they flung the vault doors open, creating a paradise for grifters. Eventually, the bill comes due, trust is shattered, and the taxpayer gets betrayed. So Trump told Fox News, I am now notifying you they're effective immediately until further notice. The SBA is halting the disbursement of federal funds, Small Business Administration, to SBA resource partners operating in the state of Minnesota, totaling over $5.5 million in annual support. The action is the result of a fundamental breakdown of public trust. Under your leadership, Minnesota failed to safeguard taxpayer dollars, and SBA will not continue to place federal resources at risk in a state where oversight measures are ignored and accountability is abandoned. That blistering message went straight to Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz, who ran for vice president on Harris's ticket.
Three-step Walz.
It's called accountability, and it's about time. This is Trump. The decisive action from President Trump's SBA is the long overdue consequence of a jaw-dropping scandal where an estimated $9 billion, that's billion with a B, was stolen from public programs right under the governor's nose.
$9 billion.
$9 billion.
Wow.
Make no mistake, this wasn't just a little waste around the edges, Trump said. This was systematic corruption on a scale that's hard to comprehend. According to federal prosecutor Joseph Thompson, Minnesota's tax system became so infamously easy to exploit that it created what he called fraud tourism. The welcome mat was out for every grifter in the country to come and help themselves taxpayer money.
Fraud tourism. What a term.
Yeah.
I remember that. Fraud tourism.
Yeah, I mean, and the thought
$9 billion
stays in my mind is this is the guy she wanted for president, vice president.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And, remember these celebrations of how great he was, and he damn near got elected. And, in Minnesota, he and the Somali community and the left conspired to essentially make of Minnesota a paradise for grifters, for grafters.
And the beginning of the caliphate in America. You know what I mean? They really were coming in there, and they really,
right.
And I think Trump getting rid of inbred Omar, what's her name? That's going to happen, I think.
Well, she may be expelled from the country.
Yeah. Omar inbred, what's her name? Is that it? Why can't I just use a normal name? I bet there's people out there just use the guy. I can't, sorry, it just can't happen.
Now, we talked about big refunds of tax payment, but there is also big refunds coming in Social Security.
The chief executive of the Internal Revenue Service said during a Tuesday interview that 94% of middle-class Americans will see some form of tax relief next year. You're going to look at probably 94% plus of the middle-class Americans getting a boost. Your tax rates coming down and getting the benefit going forward, said IRS CEO Frank Bisignano, I think that's how you say it, who is also the commissioner for the Social Security Administration. He added that Social Security recipients will see up to $6,000 benefit at the Trump administration is committed to these benefits of Social Security not being taxed, adding it will be the biggest refund that we've ever seen.
So what Trump is doing here is he's not taxing Social Security benefits. That's a huge cut. And then in addition, when the IRS issues withholding tables for 2025.
What's a withholding table? What does that mean?
It's telling employers how much money they have to take out of your check.
Got it.
They did not include the tax cuts until 2026. So most taxpayers are going to have that lump of money that should have been withheld in 25 but wasn't, and now it's going to be withheld in 26. So those two should end the left's argument about affordability. That plus the idea of a $2,000 rebate. I mean, pile it on, guys.
They'll just find some other argument. No big deal.
That's right.
They'll use that a little bit more, and then they'll find something else. So ICE, 70% of those arrested had criminal records. This is what ICE said. Roughly 70% of illegal migrants arrested by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, under the second Trump administration reportedly had been convicted or faced charges for criminal offenses. New data shows the Trump administration arrested about 600,000 illegal immigrants between January 20 And just last week, according to the Department of Homeland Security, I said 70%, roughly 416,000 had criminal convictions or pending criminal charges in the United States, underscoring President Trump's promise to prioritize the worst of the worst in immigration enforcement.
That's part of the reason why the crime rate has dropped so dramatically.
Right, absolutely. New immigration enforcement protocols and visa travel restrictions, as we talked about before, aimed at modernizing border management and strengthening national security took effect Friday. The new Department of Homeland Security rules now enforce expand biometric screening. This is all good stuff. Biometric screening at the U.S. entries and exit points. Impose tougher reviews of green cards issued to the citizens from 19 countries flagged for elevated security concerns. Supporters argue the changes represent a long overdue modernization of border controls, leveraging technology to prevent fraud, deter overstays, and close gaps exploited by criminal networks and potential terrorists. At the center of the policy is a nationwide biometric entry-exit system. Under the updated procedure, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, will photograph all non-U.S. citizens, including lawful permanent residents, every time they enter or leave the country. Good. Previous exemptions for children under 14 and adults over 79 have been eliminated. The CBP may also collect fingerprints and iris scans when warranted and match them against existing travel documents through the traveler's verification services. CBP has argued that the integrated biometric system strengthens security by reducing document fraud and identifying those who overstay visas or attempt to enter under false identities. In the Federal Register, the CBP said the system helps address threats including terrorism, fraudulent travel, documentation, visa overstay, and incomplete travel data. See, here, Dick, this is no different than when we fly to a country and we have to go through the TSA or whatever that's called, right? We go through there, they do the eye scan, they do the photograph, every friggin' thing. No different. So the Democrats that want to travel to Italy or wherever they go have to know that it's the same exact thing.
Now, half of the illegal people in the United States, back when we had illegal immigration under Biden, half of it were not people who crossed the Rio Grande or swam to America or
they came
boats.
through?
They came on visas, and they came legally, and they never left.
How does a visa work exactly? Now, Luis can't get one. Oh, good friend.
A visa is the permission of the country for you to enter it. And it's supposed to be when you fly in.
But it's temporary, like 3 months or 6 months,
yeah.
And you got to leave, correct?
That's right.
Uh-huh.
But what had been happening is nobody was making them leave.
Right.
They would stay here. In fact, we had no way to track how many there were or where they were.
Why? They have a visa, so can't we track it that way?
Now we are.
Ah.
But before Trump, we didn't.
They just didn't.
And so half of the people who were here illegally were entered the country legally, but then overstayed their visas. And now we're cracking down.
That ain't happening anymore with the new sheriff.
And that's huge in reducing the population of the U.S., really, reducing the number of people who are here illegally.
This is fantastic on so many levels.
Yep.
Once again, incentive not to do this and not to break into this country. You're going to get arrested.
And eventually a deal with inflation, because you don't have to pay housing costs, you don't have to pay transportation costs, you don't have to wait for them in emergency rooms, you don't have to wait for health care. All of the waits are gone.
When they get arrested, what it costs to incarcerate them.
That's right.
The whole thing across the board. It's a beautiful thing. Trump, this is his business model. Everything relates to everything else that Trump does. This is no different than the art of the deal.
Yep.
You could find it if you look. Read the book. Okay, Trump endorsement elects conservative in Honduras. Oh, I know this guy. Where am I going? Let's rewind to the campaign trail where Asfour, a staunch conservative, nabbed an endorsement from no other than U.S. President Donald Trump. That back, and first of all, a conservative guy in Honduras I have to read the first part. Honduras has just delivered a political earthquake with Nasri Asfour clinching the presidency in a razor-thin victory that's got the left scrambling for answers. Okay. That backing, the President Trump's endorsement, that backing wasn't just a pat on the back. Trump made it clear he'd only play ball with Asfour, signaling a hard line against other contenders. It's the kind of unapologetic clarity that resonates with those tired of diplomatic waffling. Trump didn't mince words, declaring the United States would not throw good money after bad. That's mincing words, though, by the way. If Asfour didn't win, right, that's a polite way of saying we're done bankrolling experiments in progressive policy. For many conservatives, it's a refreshing stance against endless foreign aid with no strings attached. The numbers tell the story. Asfour secured better than 40% of the vote, barely edging out Salvador Nasrallah of the Liberal Party, who trailed with 39.39%. It's a margin so tight, it's almost like, it's that you wrote you could cut it with a butter knife. I wrote I couldn't get my motorcycle down that street. It was so tight. But a win is a win. Nasrallah, a 4-time presidential hopeful, must be wondering if he's ever going to catch a break. Meanwhile, the Democratic Socialist Liberty and Foundation Party, tied to outgoing leader Xiomara Castro, I think that's how you say that. It's with an X. Xiomara Castro limped to the third place with merely 19%. That's not just a loss. It's a resounding rejection of their agenda. This result isn't just a slap in the face to Castro's administration. It's a full-on repudiation of the left's grip on Honduras. Voters seem fed up with the promise of utopia that never materializes, opting instead for Asfour, no-nonsense conservative platform. Asfour himself took to X to celebrate, proclaiming, Honduras, I am prepared to govern. I will not let you down. God bless Honduras. That's a bold pledge, and one hopes he's ready to face an inevitable pushback from those who rather cling to failed policies than embrace change. Still, it's hard not to admire the confidence of a leader stepping into a fractured political landscape. This guy's going to do well. He's a great guy. I think I met him once before, and he's a good guy, and he's going to do well.
Yeah, in Central America, you had a pushback in the 80s and 90s of Marxists who tried to take over, and they were inspired by Cuba and by Nicaragua, that essentially went communist. And it looked like democracy was in retreat throughout Latin America and throughout Central America. The U.S. responded militarily, but now Trump has responded politically by isolating Maduro, by embargoing his oil, and now by campaigning for democracy in Central America. Big changes that are going on.
This South American thing, you can see Trump is involved now. He wasn't involved last year at all, as we know. And now he's involved. And what did we talk about last week with James Rosen's thing with
that was the national security estimate we just talked about, right, where they put Latin America first and Europe second. And they basically proposed a pivot away from Europe toward a hemispheric-based defense. Mm-hmm. That's very crucial.
Interesting.
When we come back, the Missouri has gone ahead and sued China for letting COVID out in their state. And it says that the Chinese efforts to stop the solving of COVID and catching it early were obstructed by the Chinese. and they won a verdict of $24 billion against China over COVID.
When we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri.
Wait, what show is this? I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. This is the Dick Morris and Doug Deperro
show. And who's the sponsor?
Sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. So, China is suing Schmidt for $50 billion to retaliate for what was described by the Chinese government as a fraud, as a mistake of the judicial system in the U.S. Schmidt sued China for its role in unleashing COVID-19 on the world and for highlighting dangerous weaknesses in the global supply chain. China now is suing Schmidt for $50 billion to intimidate him out of a $24 billion verdict against China that Missouri got in state courts. Missouri secured a $24 billion judgment against China over allegations that Chinese authorities lied and deceived the world about the origin and spread of COVID-19. So we got a $24 billion judgment in Missouri.
$24 billion.
Against Communist China for unleashing COVID on the world because they lied and had deceived the world. Schmidt cited specific actions by Chinese authorities that he argues demonstrates deliberate concealment of the virus's spread. A couple of examples that they cut off flights in and out of Wuhan domestically, but not internationally.
That's what. That's how we knew
the COVID virus had leaked from the Wuhan lab. He also pointed to China's actions involving personal protective equipment ahead of the global outbreak. They were the largest exporter of personal protective equipment and then became the largest net importer in December of 19 before they told the world about COVID, Schmidt said. Schmidt said China's response to his criticism has been to file what he described as a baseless lawsuit against him personally. Schmidt said they're responsible for unleashing this virus on the world, and we exposed all that and they don't like it now. So we got a $24 billion verdict. The truth is, the bigger picture is that they realized how vulnerable their supply chains really are. And the result was that China deliberately withheld protective equipment from the rest of the world. At one point, there was during the first Trump administration, China had threatened to withhold hypodermic needles from the U.S.
And that drug, hydro, I forget what it was called. They had stockpiles. I'm sure, but they had stockpiles of it, and they didn't send it to us. I think.
So it's very interesting.
I wanted you to say that guy's name, the Italian guy's name. Say his name. Comments after the Treasury Secretary, 6%. Bisognano.
Okay.
Forget it.
The interesting thing here is that this is a state that is suing China under tort law, saying that you were tortious in your failure to spot COVID, your failure to make the lab cut it out, you're continuing to maintain that it was caused by a stray bat biting somebody.
Yeah.
And that this all created huge damages against the people of my state of Missouri. And this can be enforced because of the massive Chinese investment presence in the U.S. And you can seize Chinese firms, Chinese properties, and really assess China for this money. So somebody is now holding China accountable for this.
Good, about time.
It should be the federal government, but it's not. But now it's the state government, and they're using state tort law to do that, which is amazing. And Schmidt deserves a lot of credit for putting that up there.
Beautiful.
Now,
you want to take a call, Dick?
Yeah.
So let's take Robert from North Carolina. Hi, Robert from North Carolina. Hello.
Hi, guys.
Can you hear Robert? Good.
We need to end this fiction of sanctuary, state, city, whatever. The DOJ, Homeland Security, ICE, and other agencies need to file lawsuits in any jurisdiction that has sanctuary laws so they can be tossed out as unconstitutional, and that ruling can then be appealed, and the Supreme Court will eventually issue a word on that sanctuary city is in fact illegal.
Right.
Absolutely.
Sanctuary city is really exempting a jurisdiction from federal law, and we fought a civil war over that. The jurisdiction can't do that. And as soon as the cases come up on appeal, they can do exactly what you suggested. They'll rule these unconstitutional, and they'll roll this back.
Thank you, Robert. That was good.
Thank you.
Right now, there's a more urgent situation, which is that states and localities are not protecting ICE agents from criminals who attack them.
Well, may I talked about this last week. I spoke to many, at least 3, 4, 5 different police, detectives, big shots in the NYPD. They all said to me they will not listen to Mandami. If he says stand down, if ICE needs some help, and he says do not help them, they are not doing that. They are not listening to this nightmare. They're going to help these people.
Yeah.
And that was important.
I think it's very important. And I think the idea that these agents are essentially protecting the country and doing their job.
And we're not protecting them.
We're not protecting them.
Horrible.
And there are efforts to go after them. They're fingering them. They've been done attempted assassinations.
And what they call doxing them. They get their information, their picture. They tell you where they live. I say we dox the people that are taking their pictures and do that to them.
Yeah.
And then I'm not saying go to their house and hurt them, but I'm not saying don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's take another call. Christine in Connecticut. Hi, Christine in Connecticut.
Hi, good afternoon, gentlemen. Well, you mentioned about the California decision on kids being trans without parental knowledge and consent.
Right.
I am a transsexual person. I lost a 2024 Connecticut state legislative seat because I live in a district that's 3-1 Democrat. And I'm a Republican.
Right.
But I don't want to see kids being transitioned without parental knowledge and consent.
Do you say that you are trans yourself?
Yeah.
Did your parents know about it?
Good for you
when
for
you were
calling
going
in.
Yes. Did your parents know about it beforehand, and what was that like?
I hid this. I transitioned at 52. I knew about who I really was about 12 or 15 way back when.
Got it.
And I just couldn't, she was hiding inside me, and I couldn't hide any of them.
Got it. But you're against this Attorney General in Connecticut. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes. Attorney General William Tong, Letitia James, they've filed an amicus brief about 2.5 years ago supporting the Ludlow, Foote versus Ludlow. That was supporting the Ludlow School District in Massachusetts for withholding a kid's social transition from the parents. And to me, that is morally wrong, and that's one reason I ran for a legislative seat, because our Connecticut state legislature won't bring up bills to protect parental rights.
Good for you. And tell us your name again, please.
My name is Christine Rebstock.
R-E-V-S-T-O-C-K?
R-E-V as in boy, S-T-O-C-K.
Where was your district?
I was the 33rd Connecticut House District with Middletown. I moved to Plainville.
Good. Well, first of all, thank you so much for your courage in calling in.
Yes.
And for all the talk about trans. This is the first time we've had a caller who is trans.
And she ran. And what'd you run for again, Christine? I was writing your name.
State legislature. As a Republican.
State representative.
Mm-hmm. As a Republican.
Okay.
Well, bless you, Christine. Thank you for that
We'll keep you on the radar, Christine.
And we'll keep praying for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Where are we, Dick?
We're up to 20. DHS reported that it has deported 605,000 people from the United States.
The Department of Home Security said earlier this month that they deported 605,000 people from the U.S. since January 20th, when Trump took office.
And I think the previous record for deportations within a year was about 150,000.
And they also said that 1.9 million, almost 2 million people voluntarily deported at that time. That's amazing that they voluntarily. Yeah, I have to say, I was against $3,000 given them and then plus the flight. Not anymore. Not after reading all of this. This is fantastic. Trump's a smart dude.
There's been a major change going on during the Trump administration, which is the decreasing power of Congress, and the fact that Congress is increasingly just following what Trump wanted. Frustrated lawmakers are looking to 26 in the hopes that they can reclaim some of the power they fear they've ceded to the White House under Trump. Over the course of 25, the Trump administration unilaterally shuttered or drastically weakened federal agencies, implemented widespread tariffs, canceled congressionally approved spending, and conducted military operations in the Caribbean. Democrats repeatedly cried foul, and even some Republicans aired concerns about the White House brushing aside Congress. Scores of lawmakers opted for retirement before the calendar year even turned to January. In fact, I think there are now 25 congressmen or senators who have retired.
On both sides?
More Democrat than Republican. Mm-hmm. Many are now wondering whether anything will be different next year, especially with the added political pressure from the approaching midterm elections. Senator Rand Paul, who has always been a contrarian, said he doesn't see it getting better. The Republican signature legislative achievement this year was one beautiful bill, which passed using a process that bypassed the Democratic filibuster in the Senate. It extended and added tax cuts and gave boosts to defense and immigration enforcement while cutting spending on Medicaid and food assistance. The sprawling bill was widely seen as one of the GOP's only shots at enacting its legislative priorities this year. And while some Republicans are pitching for a second reconciliation bill, there's an acknowledgement that Republicans probably won't pass any other legislation that's nearly as substantial.
So abbreviate for me.
Well, in effect, the Democrats in Congress are kind of giving up. They're saying that we can't pass anything. The country is solidly behind Trump.
So they're splitting?
Yeah, so they're splitting. They're going and cashing in.
Dick thinks he's cool. Say, I'm cool.
Yeah, right. And I think that it's very interesting to see that the power between the executive branch and the legislative branch oscillates throughout American history.
Sure.
When Nixon became president, it had moved very decisively in favor of the executive branch. And then when Nixon got impeached, it got shifted the other way.
It was Republican when Nixon went through his thing, his scandal?
And then it became Democrat.
But usually, like you always say, if a Republican president, the midterm goes Democrat.
Yeah, but this was more important. These were fundamental changes in the law. When after Nixon was impeached, Congress passed the War Powers Act that gave the Congress a big role in how we go to war and how we use military force. They passed the ban on impoundment. The Congress said that the executive has to spend the money that Congress has appropriated. And there are a host of areas in which the Congress declined its power and the executive branch and Congress reclaimed the power after it had impeached Nixon. Now you're seeing a reversal of that under Trump. You're seeing the growth of executive power, and you're seeing the decreasing role for Congress. It's an incredibly shrinking Congress.
Explain it. How are you seeing that?
Well, for example, the idea of impoundment. Under Nixon, you could stop spending money as president if you didn't agree with the allocation. Mm-hmm. after Nixon, you couldn't. If Congress voted for it, you had to spend it. But now the constraints on congressional power are much more as a result of party. Trump has transformed the Republican Party into basically something of a rubber stamp, agreeing with most of the stuff Trump is doing.
If he wants it, they stamp it.
And and it's decreasing the role that Congress has. Now, eventually this will probably come to an end, and I predict that in the next few years, congressional power will reassert itself. But the retirements we're seeing now indicate that may have a while to do, because it looks like Congress is the incredible shrinking Congress, basically.
You know, I'm looking at him on TV right now in front of Mar-a-Lago, in front of a piece of artwork I did right there on TV. That's funny. Let's go to Joseph in Connecticut, talking about the tariffs.
Hi, Joseph.
Hi, Joseph.
Hello, Dick and Doug. Well, first of all, Doug, I did see your painting. I went online to that restaurant on Arthur Avenue. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. I want to talk about, the Sovereign Wealth Fund and tariffs should be enough so that as the president gets that established, that we eliminate the federal income tax. Now, what I came across, I went to my notes.
Not so
from the
fast.
1960s.
Just pause over that for a minute. It is absolutely possible that under Trump, the federal income tax will be significantly reduced, and some even say eliminated. I don't think so, but it's possible. But go ahead, Joseph.
The Sovereign Wealth Fund I saw is wealth that's in the ground, about $150 trillion that belongs to the American people. So that's one thing. Now, the tariffs, I came across my notes from the 1960s. I was taking AP history in high school, and the 1934 Reciprocal Tariff Act was signed by FDR, and it gave the president the power to negotiate bilaterally trade agreements with all the foreign countries. So why does it have to go to the Supreme Court to be justified? It's already there. It's a legitimate law. President Trump can do any kind of negotiation with tariffs and bring that money back to the United States.
That law
and contribute to the wealth.
Yeah, but that law specifies that there has to be an emergency for him to do that. And the issue before the court is a legitimate emergency when the U.S. is running these repeated deficits over the years. Trump said it is, and I think he's right. But it's going to be litigated in court. But let's go over the stuff let's go over the stuff you glossed over quickly. The entire concept behind the tariffs is that the United States has basically aided other countries, both by overt foreign aid, by offering them military protection, and by cutting trade deals with them that permitted them to grow economically. You just look at the recovery of Japan and Germany after the war, and then the growth of the Asian tigers, Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea, who bounded back economically. And that's all been facilitated by the United States. And now there is increasingly a sense that because of the past discrimination and tariffs, we're entitled to more money and they're going to have to pay us.
Right.
And we're not sure how far this will go. But it's enormous. Please go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go, Joe.
Well, I'm sorry, Dick. With all due respect, but wouldn't that constitute a legitimate reason because of the problem we have, the deficit, $37 trillion?
Yeah. Well, that's what he's going to work on.
That's what Trump is saying.
That's what he's going to.
That's what Trump is saying.
That's going to be the argument.
The others are saying, no, it's not. It's routine. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the court is going to rule in favor of your position and mine. And then the question is, how far does that go? The revenues are enormous. And you're alluding to something other than tariffs, something even more significant, which is that there's a school of thought by conservatives that we should be able to claim credit and get and borrow money against resources that are in the ground. That we should be able to say that Nevada is sitting on umpteen $1 billion of resources, minerals, gold, rare earth minerals, and those revenues should be included in the budget calculation.
As a collateral type of
collateral, yeah. And then we ought to be able to use that money.
Fast, Joe, because we're going to go on a break, but give us a quick.
Yeah, that would be like a Fort Knox in the ground.
Yeah.
That can back up our currency so that the fiat money is more legitimate.
Listen, Joe, thank you very much. It was great talk.
Very advanced economics there, Joe.
Very good, Joe. Thank you. We have to take a break, and when we get back, thank you. Bye-bye.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug Deperro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
And I just want to put the call-in number is 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. And let's go to Jack in Southampton. How's Southampton right now? You under snow, Jack?
Yes, we are, guys. Quite a bit, more than anticipated.
You got at least a foot, right?
No, not quite that much. Maybe, 4 to 6, something like that.
We got close to a foot in Connecticut.
Yeah, it did look like it's piled up further up the Hudson Valley.
So what do you got? What do you got, Jack?
Well, I listen to you guys every Sunday, and a few segments back, we were talking about Minnesota, the Somalis, but it's rife throughout the other Democratic states. California, they just had an audit that was produced, right?
Yep.
That there's over $248 billion that just disappeared off the books, all from the COVID money that was given out, et cetera. And people just seem to shrug, wink, nod.
Yeah, like it's normal.
Go after it.
Like it's normal.
Shrug, wink, nod, or if you live in California, grab.
It's just infuriating. And, with Mr. Morris tied into the things, I'm just wondering, is there any serious discussion or plan to get, because Doge was doing its job, then it got, blown up. But is there anything that's serious with this? And God, could you imagine if we had Waltz? And why wasn't that discovered and brought to the public?
Right.
His involvement with all
this. Because the media didn't want to tell you. The media didn't want to tell you.
My goodness.
Yeah.
It's so disingenuous.
It is just incredible that Waltz was a most elected vice president of the United States.
I call him the three-step Waltz.
But in answer to your question, there is this fraud all over the country. It's never quite as systematic as in Minnesota, where essentially 90,000 people agreed to defraud the taxpayers.
How much was it? $9 billion?
It was
$9 billion?
$9 billion, yeah. And 90,000 people were involved in that. Yeah. And the idea that under these democratic states, with these long-term democratic administrations, you have such systematic graft and corruption is incredible. And
but when you go to that level,
you
can't hide.
It was incredible.
You can't hide that. So people just turn in Biden didn't care, or I don't know, his administration did. They didn't care.
Well, it represented a chance to flip a swing state.
That's what it was
Minnesota
about.
was always
so I don't care what happens to my country as long as the Democrats, we get in power.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
Doesn't matter the murder rate is up and this is up and all this stuff is up. As long as Joe Schmo, a Democrat, gets elected. That's great.
Now,
Joe
Is there any serious thought, though, to how to organize and claw back this money? I hear clawbacks all the time in the World Trade Center, the whole thing.
Well,
it's possible.
In Minnesota, there is. And the criminal justice system there is really closing in on it. And Trump has frozen federal grants to Minnesota.
Like $5 million, right?
$5 billion, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't
and that process, I think, is going on. But you're right. It's far more extensive than just Minnesota, and it includes California.
Right.
And that's a good point. Thank you so much for your call.
Great.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate listening to you. Very informative. Take care.
Okay.
Now, there is a new report that's closing in on Qatar, Qatar.
I say Qatar, but do you say Qatar?
They say Qatar. And
I say tomato, you say tomorrow. Okay, newly released research challenges from Qatar role in this region diplomacy, concluding that the Gulf state has functioned not as a neutral intermediary, but as an active enabler of Hamas's military and ideological buildup that culminated in the October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel. The study, authored by Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan D. Halevi, and published by the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, asserts that Qatar provided Hamas with long-term political protection, sustained financial backing, and ideological reinforcement. According to the research, this support created the conditions that allowed Hamas to evolve into a heavily armed organization capable of executing one of the deadliest terrorist assaults in Israel. The report draws an internal document and testimonies indicating that Qatari, yeah, bad enough I can't say the first one, Qatari assistant went beyond humanitarian aid. It alleged that funding and political cover from Doha helped Hamas expand its operational capacity, including the construction and extensive tunnel work network, when we talked about that, the development of domestic weapons industry in Gaza, and the training of thousands of fighters over several years. These efforts, the research argues, were coordinated towards a large-scale offensive plan that was eventually carried out on October 7th. Halevi writes that Qatar backing was not incidental, but systematic. Qatar is not a neutral mediator, but rather a state that provided Hamas with political sanctuary, financial lifelines, ideological reinforcement, and global reach, the study states, adding that such support enables Hamas to plan and carry out mass casualty attacks while seeking to expand its campaign beyond Israel's borders.
It's about time somebody said that. And I'm so happy that this report came out. It's why we include it in this broadcast. There has been an effort to whitewash Qatar and the UAE and all of these emirates. And the whitewash has been in part because of the self-interest of various actors who collect a lot of money dealing with these countries.
You mean here? Or?
Here.
Yeah. Really.
And there are Americans who do very well in their dealings with.
And then you had the Free Palestine riots and
all of which are subsidized by the Emirates.
Mm-hmm.
And the role of this money rattling around in the U.S. In bribing public officials and in orienting public policy is something that has not been written about. It's very good to see these countries possibly joining the Camp David Accords, but they all have culpability for the massacres that went on, for the Gaza war, and for the actions Israel was required to take in its own defense. And we should not whitewash their complicity in this, but rather spell it out specifically. And that's why this report is very important.
But then you have Americans here that back Palestine and back these people and Hamas, and they'll say, free these people. Look at Netanyahu, what he's doing to some of these people in Gaza. So there's also the media that's doing their part in all of this.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, speaking of the media, I think that a theory of the long march.
Yeah, sure.
The idea that
start with the schools from kindergarten right to college.
That's right.
Indoctrinate people
you
for 50
need a long
years.
march through our institutions.
Sure.
To orient it with a leftist approach.
Right.
And the idea of long march comes from Mao Zedong's retreat
Marcuse
in China, and
right.
Marcuse, the radical professor, updated that.
Right.
Trump has done a great job increasingly of
killing
our own long march.
That's right. I said that right when he became president.
First of all, just the basic thing of pro-choice in education and the growth of charter schools and the lack of the control over the school system of the unions.
Well, the long march is also an ideological mindset.
Yep.
And Trump, and that took 50 years or whatever. It's been more than 50, right? That took 50, 70 years, whatever it is. There's a mindset after Trump was elected last year. There was a mindset now where that whole mindset of the long march and, kids going to school as young and then become big shots at corporations, maybe CEOs and rich people.
Or networks.
Or networks, right. And they become this liberal, indoctrinated liberal thing, right? The mindset now with Trump and what he's doing, and even if he doesn't even realize that he's turning that around, he's turning it around because people, just like I said a couple of times, the whole mindset after he was elected, I think a lot of people had a sigh of relief. And I think it was also, Democrats also had a sigh of relief like, oh my God, this is going to change, because there was a lot of people that did not like the Biden and Harris thing that was going on and this caliphate that's coming into Minnesota and whatnot, or Michigan. So I think all in all, the whole idea of Trump is a mindset and is going to change this long march in 4 years or 8 years. Forget about 50 or 60 years. I really do. And I said this months ago. We were talking about this.
You did, and you have. Yeah, and you're right.
And I really think it's more of a mindset. Well, it is a mindset. It's not more of a, it is a mindset, but a mindset that can be changed almost overnight. Not really overnight, but quickly.
Not overnight, but
not overnight.
It's amazing how far it has changed.
It's amazing. Thank God for Trump. Where are we going?
Let's go to Andrew in New Jersey.
Hey, Andrew.
What's going on? I hear Republicans like Salazar from Florida, that amnesty for illegal immigrants and pay $1,000 fine and you can't vote. But that's unfair, because when my wife came on a visa, I was thinking, okay, if she overstayed her visa, we would only have to pay $1,000 instead of the thousands. So the people that come here illegally, her proposal is that they actually pay less. Plus, I always say if there's a fine, it shouldn't go to the government coffers. It should go to legal immigrants that have to pay. So the money should be reimbursed.
Yeah,
legal
that's interesting.
Immigrants.
That's interesting.
And also, she's encouraging. It's like, okay. And lastly, to come here, they also say, well, Biden was wrong. So if you came here under Biden, we're going to kick you out. But really, I see it the opposite. When Biden was president, he was encouraging people to rush the border.
Yeah.
So they could say, but he told us he's the president. So, that's, in a way, that's unfair, too. But thanks for taking the call.
Well, you're right. But Biden's idea was to fundamentally change the demographics of the United States.
He just wanted to vote.
And that began with Obama and went through Biden.
Sure.
And ultimately, it's being undone by Trump. But it's a long process to undo it. We've gotten rid of 2.1 million people.
Look how quickly this has happened. But look how quickly this is. We have to take a break, but seriously, how fast we've got rid of whatever that number is we just talked about. But anyway, we got to take a break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug Deperro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Listen, Dick, let's go to Richie in the Bronx. This is interesting. Hello, Richie in the Bronx.
Hi, Richie. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dick and Doug. I am not in favor of tips, overtime, and Social Security being shielded from federal income taxes. Now,
why?
First, let's consider tips. Consider two people in different occupations. One is a tipped occupation. The other is a non-tipped occupation.
Right.
For the person in the tipped occupation, the tips usually consist of a significant portion of their total earnings.
Right.
Yet the tip portion will be shielded from income taxes. Now, the other person who is a non-tipped occupation earns the same amount of money as the person in the tipped occupation, including their tips.
Is it the same? Is it the same?
Get to shield.
Well, the theory is that most employers and employees in occupations where there are tips pay them less.
A lot less.
Because they anticipate the tip revenue.
Right.
Now, that isn't always true, and very often that's not true because it's entirely voluntary. But the market tends to adjust for that, and the idea is that you should need to recognize that in the law.
But you're right about that, Dick. They get a lot less. But go on, Richie.
Okay. But the tipped person's total earnings, including tips, even though he didn't get the tips from the employer, his total earnings are a certain amount.
Right.
Now, the person in the non-tipped occupation, let's say they earn the same amount of money as the person in the tipped occupation, including their tips.
Yeah.
Even though all his money came from the employer,
you got a better case on
the same amount of money. And
you make
fair that he doesn't get to shield any of his earnings.
Richie, you make a good point, but I don't know if I could agree with that because they are getting less money and they rely on the tip. And, so often for many years, they were getting ripped off with their tips also,
But Richie has a good point.
He has a good point.
But it's better when you look at Social Security because that's not voluntary. And the idea that Social Security benefits are now taxed and they should not be, I think is a much more compelling argument.
Well, let me answer that question. Okay, when the employee is working, he contributes to Social Security. Okay. What is probably not known to the general population is that the employer matches the employee's contributions.
That's a very good point.
Tax-free to the employee at the time these contributions are made.
That's a very good point.
Okay, now
we're going to have to go in.
We got to go soon.
We got to go in a second, but let me just say that I think that's a very novel and interesting argument, and you make a good case in terms of the employer share not being reimbursed to the taxpayer.
If anything, Richie, call in next week. We'll talk to you more about it also.
Yeah. I really like this.
If I can, I will.
Good.
Please call back.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. So,
did we have a good show or what? What do you think?
We had a great show.
What are you going to say?
I thought it was wonderful.
No, we didn't have a good show. I'm so depressed. I'm going home. But thank you to Roxana Maria with On the Rocks. That was beautiful, what she did. And we're good. We're good to go. It's an honor. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Dick Morris.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.